Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them, and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. Hi, Anita.
Hey, Mel.
Okay, tell us what's happening.
My basement flooded today, so it's been a bit of a zoo here. I mean, it's always a zoo here, but it's a zooier zoo here. That's what I've been doing today.
The fun never stops with you, it sounds like.
Yeah, somebody told me that if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all.
Oh my
And
gosh.
funnily, in my brain, I was thinking, this isn't so bad. I've dealt with worse. I mean, it's annoying, but it's not the worst thing to deal with. So
Okay,
it was a sprinkler pipe that broke and it's a drought. So I feel terrible that I've been like just dumping all the water into my basement. Rude.
did you go swimming in it?
No, it wasn't enough to go swimming in, unfortunately. Just
Man.
enough to go squish, squish when you walked.
If it were, then you wouldn't need to go to the pool.
Yeah, except for ew.
Yeah, also that.
How are you, Mel? Have you had any excitement?
Man, I think I've been just working a lot, and yeah, I'm about to launch my online jazz piano course, which takes a lot of my brain power because there's a lot of things to route on the back end since it's online. So I've been focusing on that a lot. And
That sounds exciting.
yeah, it's been a long time in the making. So I'm getting closer every day, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually, at the time that this episode goes live, going to be on another podcast on the same day. So
How can you be in two places at once, Mel?
I'm telling you, the internet is a wild, wild place.
It's magical.
Yes, so this is going to be a piano teaching podcast that I'm sure nobody that listens to this wants to listen to, but
I don't know. You never do know.
who knows? It's called Teach Music Online. So yeah,
Fun.
been pretty good. Widow Wives Club, we're having a lot of good conversations in there this week. We posted an episode about passive suicidality and have gotten a lot of feedback from that. A lot of people have been saying thank you for putting into words what I've been feeling. So we're sorry if you are experiencing that, and we're here for you, and we're glad that it's helping some people.
Yeah, I think we actually just passed 500 members in the Wives Club.
Oh
Can you
man,
believe that, Mel?
the death just keeps on coming.
It's kind of stupid cool.
I hate it that it's for that reason, but then I love the people because they're hilarious and awesome. And everybody's so cool.
So welcome to all of our new members. And if you want to join us there, just make sure that you answer all the questions. The Widow Wives Club is just for people who have experienced partner loss. We have our public Facebook, public Instagram page for those regular grief civilians who do not have a death certificate that they can produce for us.
If you want to join the Widow Wives Club, go search for it on Facebook, or it's in our link in our Instagram bio or on our website.
I did 2 crazy things this week too, Mel. You want to hear?
Yeah, and are you about to tell me that you did these things in the crazy, crazy smoky air?
Yes. It's so smoky here. It's crazy. And my nose is just running because of all this smoke. So we're getting all the California wildfire smoke. I can't imagine what it's like in California. Tell us if you're from California. Are you basically like in a chimney right now all the time?
Can you send a paper airplane up into the smoke and maybe it will come all the way to us? Marie, Kat, everyone from California? Yeah,
that would be
to us.
Crazy. I did some trail running this week. I signed up for a couple of races the day before the races and then did them. And one was crazy. It's called the Crazy Bob's Bear Gutsman.
Are you serious?
Yeah. You basically hike straight up the mountain. Ooh. So I did that, and I have this funny story to tell you from that race.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
You just are hiking straight up this mountain, right? And it's a race. So there's lots of people there. And there was a guy behind me, and I said to him, hey, do you want to pass me? Because he had come up behind me. And he said, no, I'm just really enjoying staring at your... And in my mind, I was like, if he says butt, I'm going to be so mad. And
what did he say?
Your shoes.
Ooh.
But it was like this such awkward thing in my head. I was like, he probably has no idea how that sounded like it was going to end to me. But I was like, if you say my butt, I'm going to turn around and kick you.
Okay, also, though, wouldn't you be kind of proud of yourself that your butt was so awesome that it was getting stared at?
Well, here's the thing, is that he probably was, because there's like not much else that you look at. You're just looking at the person in front of you. And yes, but I just don't think you should tell people that you're doing that if you're doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like social skills. Let's work on them.
Yes. Yeah. And all decorum goes out the window when you're doing something like that. So
yeah.
Whatever. It was just funny. I laughed and laughed and laughed inside my head.
I love it.
Like, I'm staring at your shoes. Anyway, my shoes are cool, by the way. So
they are. And what was your other thing you did?
Just another trail run that was so beautiful. Oh my gosh.
You did 2 trail runs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to say something else that involved pictures, because you did that this week.
Oh, yeah. There's a place called the Bonneville Salt Flats out by us, and we drove out there. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive, and I made my kids come. They were so annoyed. And then we got to take really, really fun forced perspective photos. So that's like where you put something in the foreground and something in the background. And the Bonneville Salt Flats are great for that because they're so flat and they're all the same color that you kind of lose your depth perception. And so it looks like the things are standing next to each other. So if you go look on my Instagram, you'll be able to see some of those photos. They were so fun. I loved them so much. I have one with Darth Vader who looks like he's trying to choke my mom.
I like that one. Did the kids end up having fun once you got there?
You know, they didn't really have the vision because those are not something that you see until you've like looked through the pictures, and it was so bright you couldn't really see them. So they had no idea. They were like, what are we doing and why are we doing this? And my 4-year-old, it was so hot. It was like 1,000,000 degrees. Kept licking his finger, then putting his finger on the salt flats and then licking the salt off his finger. I mean, just over and over and over. He's licking the salt flats. And then he's like, I'm thirsty. And I'm like, stop licking the salt flats.
Oh, my God.
They're really salt. I mean, they're made out of salt. So it was kind of funny.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
they didn't appreciate it. But then when we got done, they were like, oh, that was fun. So I want to go back.
It sounds really fun. Take me next time. Plan it.
Okay.
So that I can plan it, too.
Yeah. Mel.
She asked me like 2 hours ahead.
Doesn't know that I don't ever plan anything.
Yeah.
I'm living by the seat of my pants all
sometimes
the time.
I don't either, but in that case, I did need a giant block of time.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, go check those pictures out. They are way fun. If you're ever out in western Utah, go to the Bonneville Salt Flats. It's also where they do all that speed racing, like the Guinness Book of World Records stuff. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. Just living the widow dream.
Yes, when my house flooded today, all of the neighbors were like, "Oh, we must help the widow Coyle."
Good.
So, like, 30 people showed up at my house. So
oh, good.
That was
I'm
kind of
glad.
nice. Yeah, and like the sprinklers fixed, and anyway, it's all good.
Anita, what are some other ways people can support the widow Coyle?
They can rate and review our podcast. That's like number one above flood recovery, guys. Go to iTunes, Apple Podcasts, do a review. Really helps.
Thank you. Also, if you're interested, we have a Patreon account, and that's how you can support content creators. We have a Patreon. There are a lot of fun things in there, and we have 4 different levels starting at $5 per month. And there's exclusive access to certain content. There's an exclusive t-shirt in there for one level. One level helps Anita get a babysitter so that we can have less interruptions, the whole gamut of things. So if you're interested in joining, patreon.com/WWDN. And in addition to that, at a certain level and up, you get a shout out on our podcast episode, which is now.
Oh, we're going to start with our secret dead husband,
who says, "It's a wonderful day in the widowhood. You got this, widows."
Next, we have Constance Dahlbach,
David Kelly,
Dawn Satterwhite,
Ivan the Misner,
Kat the Cat,
Amy the Amy,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Hahn,
Christina Shiflett,
Danielle Katterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brazo,
Jenny Taylor,
Jenny Wang,
Kathy Murray,
Kirsten Stromberg, Spooky Scary,
Leslie Webb,
Missy Schubert,
Sarah Morris. Get through this month, girl.
You got it. Also same to Missy.
Oh.
My mom,
The Winehouse Karen Cornejo,
Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato,
Christine Anderson.
Get better. Christine and her whole family have COVID.
Bleh.
Maybe that was a HIPAA violation, but she posted on Facebook, so I feel like it's not.
Okay. Mindy Holmgren,
Dawn Barber,
Diana Becker,
Emily Thornton,
Emily Toledo,
Erin Posick,
Gabe Lozano,
Ian Sini,
Ileana Bell,
a person who cooks delicious steaks,
Jamie Aliota,
my mom,
Jenny Barrow,
Jocelyn Milo,
Fancy Lady,
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara,
Lori Farrington,
Marie Hoffman,
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan,
Peter Rukavina,
Sarah Kennedy,
Shannon Helm.
Sunshine Haven,
Was that your turtle, or did you just find that? Tammy Schwartz,
Tara Wallace,
Valeria Packer,
and Digital Picture Frame Wendy.
So every picture changes.
Yeah.
Give it to your grandma. I love it. Thank you to everybody who supports us on the Patreon. We welcome all of you to join our Patreon too if you feel so inclined to help keep the podcast going. And if you're not able to join the Patreon, and if you'd just like to send us to go get some tacos, we have a new taco place we want to try out. It's called Taco Taco.
I've been there.
Oh, you were supposed to tell them that.
Well, I want to take you there.
Okay. Mel wants to take me to a new taco place called Taco Taco.
It's delicious.
So if you want to send us on this excursion, then go to buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now.
Let's get to our episode. This was a fun one.
Totally different than what we're used to. So I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're 2 young widows, one with a flooded basement, and we're trying to figure out widow.
We do. Echo, echo, echo.
Now.
This episode is sponsored by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts, and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Mel, I'm so excited.
Me too. Tell me why.
Because this is not our normal guest. This isn't the run-of-the-mill widow story.
This is not our regularly scheduled programming.
Yes, this is like a Christmas special or a Halloween special.
Or an August special.
Yeah, or like the Say No to Drugs special.
Widow style.
That one, yes. But actually, it has nothing to do with any of those things. So stay with us. Don't turn it off because we've confused you.
Okay, so who do we have with us today, Anita?
We have Bethany Dixon. Hi, Bethany.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Bethany, tell us where you're recording from, and then we're going to figure out who you are and why you're here to talk to us.
Absolutely. So I am recording from Canada. I'm in Ontario, close to Toronto.
Excellent. And what do you do in your day job, Bethany?
So my day job, I teach technical writing at a university here in Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What do you do in your volunteer spare time?
As a volunteer, my main role is to be the international engagement coordinator for Nyanam Widows Rising, which is a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing organization that I'm very passionate about and very close to in Western Kenya that works with widows, hence the connection to this podcast.
Okay, so you yourself, not a widow.
Correct.
Right? Thank goodness. We are so happy for you. But very interested in helping widows. And you belong to an organization that does just that. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how the organization came about?
Absolutely, yeah. So the organization originally started by a university student from one of the small communities in Western Kenya on the shores of Lake Victoria. Her name is Jacqueline Odiambo, and she was my best friend in university. So we met in Massachusetts. We went to Williams College. And
I have a nephew going there right now.
Oh, no way. Amazing.
Yes.
Yay, Eve.
Yeah.
Shout out to Williams. Yeah. And actually, Williams has played a really important role in Nyanam, too, because the alumni have really come around and a lot of the board members are from Williams and stuff. So that's a side note. But yeah, so Jackie asked a few of her friends to step in and help with some fundraising for her support of her community. At the time, her village didn't have a school, so she started supporting them in building a school, which grew over the years to become a full primary school, which is very exciting. Anyway, and as her work continued, she started realizing that of the voices in the community, the ones that were being sidelined were often the widows. And unfortunately, there are a lot of widows in those communities, partly due to high HIV/AIDS prevalence and other causes of death that mean a lot of people are widowed. And their cultural situation meant that a lot of the widows were not being included as much as they should be in those community practices. So she started to focus more on widows. She's also the daughter of a widow herself. And so in 2017, she decided to found this organization called Nyanam that focuses just on widows.
Okay. So what does the name mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's a word from the Luo language, which is the prominent language in Western Kenya. Kenya also has Swahili and English as the national languages, but then there are a lot of localized languages. So Luo is the prominent language there. And it's a term of endearment that means daughter of the lake. So it's used for women in that region. And because they're all around Lake Victoria, it means daughter of the lake.
So you guys focus mostly on that community in Western Kenya. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're starting also to prepare some of their trainings that will be available to a lot of other widows, both in sub-Saharan Africa and other areas. But right now, all of the widows involved directly are in the Lake Victoria region in Western Kenya.
Tell us a little bit about what some of the circumstances are for the widows in Western Kenya.
Yeah, they're quite complex, so I'll try to capture some of them. A lot of what they face is the effects of a fairly patriarchal culture. And so they face, when their husband dies, they often face loss of their land, for example, because the land will be in the husband's name. And then when the husband dies, opportunistic people such as extended family members will come in and take it. And sometimes the widows themselves didn't have access to education, or at least not to reading an English document. Maybe they can read in Luo, but a lot of the legal documents are in English. So a lot of that in terms of land rights, losing land, is a really big challenge for them, which of course also affects their livelihoods because a lot of them are agriculturalists. And so they grow food both for their own families and to sell. So that's one of the big things. And then there's also a set of cultural practices that are very challenging, including like widow inheritance. For those who are listening who might have read the Old Testament, that's kind of described in the Old Testament, the idea that, the man passes away and then another man inherits the woman.
No!
And that can, I know. And so unfortunately, that's still quite common in those cultures.
Who inherits them?
Yeah, what if you don't like them?
I know, exactly. No, it's terrible. Like, a few of them, I have to say, have had good experiences. So I don't want to paint this completely black and white, that a few of them who we've worked with, we really try to do deep listening. And by we, it's mostly the people on the ground. So some have had a few good experiences, depending on who it is. But unfortunately, there are those who start to do it kind of as a business, which is really awful.
What? How? Wait,
yeah.
Tell us more.
Basically, they predatorily come in and say, well, you need this inheritance in order to survive, really, because the culture says, well, you have to be with or have some kind of connection with a man. And sometimes that's sexual. Often it is actually with like sexual cleansing practices and stuff like that. And so they will come in and say, okay, well, I will inherit you, quote unquote, and then provide for maybe your kids' school fees, but then you have to do anything I want. And so it's very sad, and it often leads to the spread of more HIV, which again is prevalent in that area, and just generally, a struggle for the widows.
I have a question for you. Is sexual cleansing like female circumcision? What is that?
Great question. It's not quite the same. So there is some practice of that separately, but the sexual cleansing is just basically that you have to maybe have sex with your inheritor in order to be free to move on with your life. Like, it's almost like this concept that you are impure because your husband died. And sadly, widows also sometimes get blamed for their husband's death, even though they're clearly not responsible and they are grieving themselves. And so there's this interesting cultural perception or pattern that sees women and widows as unclean, and then they have to go through certain things to be clean again.
Wow.
Essentially.
Wow.
I'm thinking, Mel, that the inheritors as a business, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, is kind of like people who do like foster care, but then they're like working the system. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Like, I'm going to be a foster parent so I can get the money, but I'm going to be like an evil stepmother and have a million foster kids. That's what I liken it to in my brain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it's not necessarily like the inheritance system within a culture isn't always bad. I mean, we from a Western perspective might say that doesn't make sense, but yeah, when it becomes predatory or something like that, then it's definitely not good.
And it's not always familial. It's not like you go to the next,
the brother,
the next of kin. Yeah, the older or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be, and that is how it is culturally.
Okay.
But I think it's one aspect of modernity and like parts of the culture still remaining and parts of it that are changing that I think have kind of bred this new idea of the widow inheritor.
What's that social climate like? Because obviously it's a very, very long-standing tradition and it's very steeped and passed down from generation to generation. And also there are some people who are like, no. How is that over there?
Yeah, that's a really great segue into some of the really hopeful stuff that the widows are doing together. So I would say one of the great things that I've seen and all of us who work with the widows have seen happen is the widows coming together and being able to realize, oh, I'm not the only one who questions this, or I'm not the only one who wants to say no to this. And then once they're together, whether it's in a group counseling session, which is one of the things that Nyanam offers, or in one of their leadership circles. So they get together to meet like twice a month or so to just talk together about what they're going through and support each other. Anyway, so through this connection, the isolation is breaking down, and then they're being able to question a lot more and say, you know what, I choose not to. And I think one of the hardest things about all the stigma and everything is the isolation. And it makes it hard to say no, right? If you're totally alone, you've even been cut off from your extended family because they're blaming you for your husband's death or just all these crazy things, then you're not necessarily going to have the ability to say no because you still need to feed your children, right? And if you don't have access to a good job, you have to do what you have to do. So I think being able to have a group and both support each other economically and then also see like, yes, I can say no to this, that really starts to change, which is really cool.
That's amazing. This is reminding me on a different level. Of course, this is very extreme, but we have been surprised to learn how important community support is as far as like widows helping widows. And we've seen really great things happen just in an online community with support for daily things. And it helps bring people out of isolation and find community. And with what you guys are doing, this is like physically together on the ground, like you say, and it's the same concept. No, even though we're in different circumstances, like socially and with the country and the traditions and stuff, that is so amazing.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the things that really drew me to your podcast and just all that you do. It's like, wow, there's so many similarities worldwide, even if the specific circumstances are different.
I want you guys to imagine, I'm putting myself in these shoes. So your husband dies, you're devastated. It's the worst. You probably feel guilt just like you do in normal, like in the US, in the, Australia, Canada, all of these places, because you wonder if you could have done things differently or whatever. But then your family blames you, even if there is no reason for them to blame you. Your house, imagine if they're like, oh, by the way, your house is not yours. All of the property of your husband's is not yours. Your in-laws are going to take that, or your husband's older brother now owns all of that. And, oh, by the way, now you belong to somebody else, and you might even have to have sex with somebody who you don't even like because you need to be purified. Like, that's too much.
Somebody in that situation seriously only has power over their own thoughts. Everything else is decided for them. And I'm sure, like, if you're in that, there are, I'm sure, talks of like what abusive situations are, in the cycle of abuse. And so it's like, do these women know that they can get out of it if they want to, or can they if they're in this position?
Yeah, all of those are such good points. I would say that sometimes if they are totally, totally isolated, then you just can't, right? Because of exactly those cycles of abuse and both the emotional and psychological part that makes you think you can't get out, and the physical part that's like, I really can't, because if, again, I have to support my children and this is the only way at this time for me to access what I need. So that's one of the really neat things about a holistic source of support, both from other widows and from an organization, because it can help them with all those areas, right? So as I was mentioning earlier, the group counseling can help the psychological piece of like, yes, I'm worth more than this. And a lot of the widows there are Christian. I would say 98% of the widows that are involved in our work, which is about 350, they are part of a Christian church, just because it's very common in that area. And so they also have drawn a lot of strength from reading some of those older Bible stories, and seeing like, oh, I see in somebody else's story that they experienced this or this. I'm not the only one. They can start talking about what they're going through and then start to see psychologically, yes, I can get out. But then, of course, there is the practical piece. So seeing what do we need to do to actually make it practical to get out. So micro business training is one of the things that Nyanam works with so that they can grow their own businesses. And also Nyanam partners with some lawyers that do some work pro bono to help them with their land rights, which is really awesome, because if they have land, they can grow their own food, they can sell food, and they have a place to live. Everything kind of catapults from there. So it's both of those, right? The psychological piece, but then also, how do we physically get you out?
So the land rights situation, is it more that they're like forced or they're coerced into signing over the land? It doesn't just automatically go to somebody else. Do they have some rights if they have proper representation?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in Kenyan law at all, but they do absolutely.
You're not a Kenyan
lawyer? They do absolutely have legal recourse. And so that's what a lot of these pro bono lawyers are trying to help. And also training the widows too, to know like, what are my rights and how can I go through asserting them, and to know somebody's with them, because often it's that, abuse side of like, just not listening to them or gaslighting them or whatever when they try to assert their rights. So it's both the actual legal support, but also just the support saying, we believe you, we have your back, to help them get that. But yes, the short answer is they do have some legal recourse.
I bet that's like kind of the first step, is even knowing that you have rights.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Do some people like just come physically walk on their land and they're like, get out of here, and they just stay there? Or do the people that take over try to go the legal route?
Oh, it's definitely not all legal. No. Like, I think a lot of these land seizures happen without any paperwork at all. So sometimes it is like getting them to sign when they can't understand what they're signing sometimes. But other times, I think people just kind of tell them, oh, this is what we're doing. And maybe it's for your good, or, they present it in a way that might not seem that bad, or might leave them with a little bit of land, and then they don't realize everything that's happening because you're in grief, right? And in all this other crazy trauma.
And you're not educated because you've been raising your kids and all. Yeah. Oh man. So have there been any stories where somebody has come in and just tried to take the land over, not through the legal course, but then somebody from your organization helped the widow and then they legally got their land back?
That's a great question. That's actually something that they're just starting to do. So I don't know if there has been an example yet. Actually, this is an interesting thing about how Nyanam is approaching it that I think is really powerful, but also a bit slower. So it's that they're taking a restorative justice approach. So for us, from Western perspective, we think like, oh, let's just stand up for the widow, like, get her land no matter what, and like, forget all those terrible relatives, or, as a simple way to think of it. But the relationship with your extended family, who is often the one trying to take the land, even if it's very extended, is very important, of course, to them. And especially in that culture where family and extended family are very, very important. So Nyanam is taking an approach where they are trying to move through it a little bit more slowly with the widows and kind of a mediation process, so that, and also the leaders in the community, like the chiefs of the village or whatever, so that everybody's kind of in on it, rather than just coming in and saying, okay, we're going to take this to court right away and get you your land back, but then none of your family will speak to you again.
Yeah, it's like you burned all your bridges, so you have your land, but now you live on an island. So good luck.
Exactly.
Surviving.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. We're gonna steal that, Anita.
Yes.
But yeah, exactly. So that's one reason that I can't point necessarily yet to like, oh, this, we're all one cases, because it's kind of, they're all in process. And it's also a newer aspect of Nyanam's work. They kind of started with whatever the widows asked for. And the widows said, first, we just need help with our small businesses that we have, whatever we do already have. And then second, we need mental health support. And so they were asking for that. And then after that, they've started to say, okay, let's look at the land rights. So it's kind of this year and last year just getting started.
So what are some of the businesses that these women are using to support themselves?
So a lot of the businesses that they have are agricultural. So a lot of them will grow vegetables or fruits or things and then sell those at the market, which meant that during COVID, that was very, very, very difficult for them because their main source of income was selling at a market, and markets being an area that people are very close together were often closed down. And so that really affected their small source of income. So I would say almost all of the ones that I'm aware of are somehow agriculturally related. Some of them also do other things like peanuts or other foods, but most of them are. Some of them also have some other skills like sewing, and they'll be able to sell something that they sew. But yeah, most of them are agricultural.
Is education available to them? I know you said that there's business training available. Is it common or even feasible that they go to school? And what's that kind of situation like over there?
A lot of the older widows wouldn't have gotten an opportunity to go to school beyond primary school. So that would be anywhere from ending at grade 3 to grade 6 or depending. I would say now there is a good public school system in Kenya. It does require some school fees, at least for the books and something, so it's not fully free. And that is still a big issue for the widows' children. So recently, Nyanam has also started working with the widows' kids, and that's kind of a new area that's developing too, because that's obviously so important for the widows themselves to know that their kids are getting those opportunities. And seeing something like Jackie, actually, she's a really amazing example who went through the full Kenyan school system, did very well despite her mom having 4 kids and being the sole provider. Jackie herself had to take care of her 2 younger siblings since she was 14, essentially, because her mom had to be in the city working to support them and send them to school. And her one older sister, I guess, supported herself. And then Jackie took care of them. But she made it through and succeeded, and then got a scholarship to go to Williams, and has since done a master's in the UK and just really amazing stuff, and is now doing her PhD, actually, which is why she couldn't join us right now. She's in a PhD class.
Where is she going to school right now?
She's doing a joint PhD between a university in Kisumu, which is the city where she's from, and UCSF in San Francisco.
Ooh.
So she's just an overachiever.
Yes, absolutely. But it just really shows, right, like that education and educational opportunities can do so much for them. And then amazing that she would come back and be able to work in that community and help them pursue that. And same with the school that she helped found. Before it was just focused on widows, that meant that now the little kids didn't have to walk like an hour each way just to get to school. Now they can study right there. So it's getting better, the access to education, but definitely the small school fees are still really hard, especially for the widows to pay.
Wow. What kind of, you said that you've got people on the ground there. How many people are in your organization and doing all this work?
That's a great question. They do amazing amounts with so little. So that's right awesome. Now there are only 2 full-time staff. So Jackie is still working full-time while doing her PhD, and 1 project manager on the ground, and then they have 2 part-time staff. And then the widows themselves do a lot of it just as volunteers, so not on the staff, but because they want to support themselves and each other, which is really cool. So it is very grassroots and very much kind of from the ground. And another nice thing is, obviously, it is a nonprofit, so it does rely on donations. But unlike a lot of other nonprofits where you send a donation and, 50% or more goes to the overhead or paying someone in North America, maybe, in this case, every penny goes directly to Kenyans and largely to the widows or that small staff that's related to the widows.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So it sounds like there's a lot of volunteers, like a big volunteer network, and then just a few people who are running kind of the show full time or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The administrative or the paid staff, like you were saying.
Man, it's warming my little cold widow heart, because as we became widows, we realized just how tightly bound the widow community is once we meet each other finally. And it's like this sisterhood instantly. And so to now think of it in the terms of what your organization is doing and physically how they are, and like they're helping each other, and they're in the worst of the worst situations, and they're there for each other, creating a similar sisterhood, but also with like horrible social conditions and all of these factors. Like, this is so amazing, the work that you are doing and that they are participating in. I love what you guys are doing.
It's lovely connecting across the world and across such different experiences, but such similar ones in so many ways.
So we came across your account on Instagram because you tagged us in something. And so that's how we got to know who you were. So how can we find you? What can we do to help? I know, of course, donations, but are there other things needed? Like, do they need packages sent? Do they need letters written? Like, what's that looking like?
Yeah, how can we get involved?
That's a great question. I have to say that long-term, my dream is that we could get a group of like widows sisterhood from North America or other places to go and visit, because that connection.
We want to go.
We're
good. We volunteer.
Yeah, honestly, I would love to make that happen longer term. Once COVID allows and, everything, that would be so, so neat. Because for me, even, the time that I spent with knowing Jackie and being involved before I went was lovely. But once I actually met them and got to just interact, it is. And it's amazing to see how those connections work. So that's long term. I would love that.
Like, what was that like meeting them?
It was amazing. Really, really amazing. Of course, part of it for me, since I knew Jackie really well, kind of felt like meeting people I had known for a long time. I think the part that really struck me, I had more contact with the widows' kids than with the big groups of widows, just because of logistics during my visit. And the widows' kids were so expressive about their experiences. Like, we got together and they, maybe like 50 or more of them came on a weekend when they didn't have to. And they did these little drama skits about things they experienced in their lives. So the prompt was like, share something that may be challenging in your life, and we'll think about areas that we can come together and address them. And so for each age group was so different. So the little girls did something about building a house because some of their moms were having, struggles with home building or having enough space or whatever. And then the older kids were just amazing, so nuanced. They did all these plays about like the adolescent girls who don't have school fees or don't necessarily, like, they can't afford menstrual products or stuff like that. So then they have to be in like a transsexual sexual relationship themselves. So that's separate from the widows, just to get that paid. I know, it's so frustrating, but they were dramatizing that, like, not the details, but like that concept. And the boys would often dramatize the school fee issue because they want to go to school, right? Unlike, some people I know who just kind of take school for granted. They want to so much. And so, yeah, it was just overall so powerful to be able to engage and share stories, mostly listen. When we go, it's mostly for listening, but it's amazing. Yeah.
I have an idea, and it starts with Anita. Are you ready, Anita?
I think I am.
Here's my idea. Your kids send letters to some of those kids and create a relationship, and then maybe it could grow into other people's
pen pals.
Yes!
I love that idea.
That'd be fun.
Adore that idea. Yeah, it would be super fun. And of course, they're like super bright and brilliant and very good at English because they study in English. So yeah, that would be.
They're probably better than
really...
my kids. And my kids don't even have to pay for school fees. So.
Anita, maybe your kid won't take your grandpa's bank stamp and stamp the fence if he has a pen pal from Kenya.
Right before this, Bethany, my 4-year-old took my grandpa has a deposit stamp, and I take care of his checkbook, and it has his bank account information on it. And my 4-year-old took it, and he stamped every slat of the fence outside. So every clear as day, it says his name, his bank account, where he banks. And I'm like, and it would not come off. And I'm like, I'm going to have to change his bank account and move because what in the world? And then Mel, he also stamped the neighbor's car all over the car. I'm like, I don't even know. It's just, we need pen pals.
Okay, and they will also be coming with us to Kenya the first time to participate in skits, and they can add that to the skit.
I love it. I literally love it.
Oh, man. Okay, we'll go to Kenya next week. Let's plan a trip.
Perfect. Yeah, you need to get away.
So we talked a little bit about with Bethany and Jackie before the podcast about getting a hold of one of their widows and being able to interview them. So we hope we can make that work because I think that would be so interesting to talk to somebody with such a different, set of cultural norms and traditions and all of those things. Because most of our listeners come from, even if they're from different countries, we all kind of share the same set of basic traditions. Culture. Yeah, basically. So we're going to keep working on that. So keep your eyes out for that. We kind of cut you off in the middle of talking about how we can be involved in helping, how our listeners can be involved in helping.
Yeah, so actually COVID has made me realize how many opportunities there are for being involved from far away because we can't go, right? And so actually there are some amazing opportunities for being involved online. Especially in the communications area. So if any of your listeners enjoy writing or if they like website design or any of that, that's something that because the small staff on the ground is doing so much work on the ground, they don't have as much time. For getting involved, anything virtual, honestly, the idea of pen pals, if anybody's interested, whether it's kids or whether it's somebody who is a widow and you want to kind of exchange a few letters with an actual widow, definitely contact us for that idea. But in terms of, contributing to the work, any kind of communications, if you like storytelling, again, if you like Instagram or like any social media, of course, we do have a presence, but we don't always have the capacity to be posting a lot. So graphic design, any of those areas, if you're interested. But yeah, feel free to contact me. As Anita mentioned, my name is Bethany Dixon. And my email is bethany.dixon, that's Dixon, at nyanam.org. And Nyanam also has...
Spell Nyanam, because
for sure.
I can't even say it.
Nom nom.
You did great. You did
That's
great.
what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me, remember in the Thor movie when they're talking about his hammer and she's like, his hammer's name's Meow Meow or whatever. That's like what it's reminding me of. I'm like, it's like, Yum Yum. Okay,
yeah, it's funny because when they use that word, back in Kenya, it's like, oh, everyone knows and everyone loves it. But then you use it in a different language. People are like,
what is that?
Yes.
But yeah, so the spelling is Nyanam. And the website is simple too. It's just www.nyanam.org.
We will link to all of this stuff in the show notes, y'all. So check it out. You mentioned that the widows request help with mental health services, correct?
Yeah.
Do they have a good setup for that over there? Or is it something that if somebody is a mental health professional, they're able to also volunteer their services for?
That's a great question. At this point, they do have a fairly good setup with Nyanam's staff because 2 of the part-time staff are trained counselors. And they also have like a pastoral background. And so for the ones who want the more spiritual side, they also kind of do that. But absolutely, if somebody has that background and is interested, definitely feel free to reach out and we could put you in touch with the counselors themselves and you could chat about opportunities. I think one of the cool things about my job with the engaging with international engagement is just the bridge building. I love relationship building. And I think even if those of us far away aren't going to come in and, it's not our job to like save or do anything for them, but just to come alongside and build those relationships is really, really great.
Bethany, what about money? Do you guys want money? If people want to just give you money, are you cool with that too?
Well, we wouldn't say no. No, yeah, donations are much appreciated, of course. We're just finishing our 501c3 status in the US. And so that's pending, hopefully by the end of this year. It's quite a process to get that. But yeah, there is easy way to donate on the website, just through PayPal, or there are a couple other options. So of course, donations are much appreciated, and you would be contacted to let you know exactly how it's used. And again, all of it would definitely go straight to the small team and to their work on the ground.
Wow.
Is the situation that these widows in West Kenya are dealing with, is this common throughout all of Africa?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would definitely say yes, it's fairly common. And if your listeners are interested, there's a really good report that I can send to you guys, or you can link as well, called the Lumba Report. It was, I think, published in 2015, and it's about widows mainly in sub-Saharan Africa, but I think also other areas. So there's several reports that kind of summarize, and it does show that this kind of experience is much more common than most of us would have known.
Do you have anything else we need to know that you want to tell us that we have not gotten to yet?
I don't think so. I just want to say thank you so much to both of you and to all of your listeners just for engaging and for being this sisterhood that exists. It's really, really amazing for me to witness it and to be some part of it without the experience of being a widow myself. But yeah, really appreciate it.
We thank you as well, Bethany, because like you mentioned, you're not a widow and you are helping the widow cause, which I'm sure you've learned a lot along the way. And so that means a lot to us that you help support our fellow widow sisters all over the world. Thank you.
Bethany, thank you so much for joining us today. You are darling, and we are so impressed with you. Make sure you check out the Widow Wives Club if you're not already in there. If you're a widow, if you're not a widow, you can check out our Instagram, our website, and our public Facebook page. And then if you want to keep the podcast, if you want to keep the podcast going, check out Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
Buy us some tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonow.
And until we get to talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Bethany.
And we're just two young widows and a volunteer who is pure of heart, trying to help the widows. And we're all trying to figure out
Widow we do now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
TryMintMobile.com/WWDN.